Hello and welcome to the Story Shed. I have another story for you now. It's a Russian tale which has been rewritten and retold by Dorothy Aitchison. And it's a Russian tale called The Firebird. So sit back, relax and hopefully enjoy the story. Many years ago in Russia there lived a powerful king. A king in that country was called a Tsar. The gardens round the Tsar's palace had many beautiful trees and flowers, but his greatest treasure was a tree on which golden apples grew. The Tsar was very proud of this tree and went to look at it every single day. Then one day an apple was missing, and the next day another apple was missing. When a third apple disappeared, the Tsar grew angry. He set some men to watch, but nobody could catch the thief. Now the Tsar had 3 sons. The eldest was called Peter, the second Vasily, and the youngest was named Ivan. One day he called the young men to his room. "A robber is stealing my golden apples," said the Tsar, "and I have decided that whoever can catch this villain may have half of my kingdom." The eldest son stepped forward. "We will do our best, father," he said. "I will be first. I will watch in the orchard tonight." So Peter went to the garden to keep guard by the golden apple tree. He did his best to keep awake, but it was no good. In the morning he found that another apple had gone while he'd been asleep. Peter had to tell his father that he had not caught the thief, and the Tsar told his second son to go to the orchard on the next night. Vasily had no better luck than Peter. Although he tried just as hard to keep awake, he too fell asleep, and when daylight came, yet another apple had disappeared. The Tsar was disappointed in his sons, and when Ivan said he would watch over the tree on the third night, his father didn't have much hope. "Go if you like," he said, "but I think you'll fail, just as your brothers have." Ivan took his place by the tree and decided he wouldn't sit down. He walked for many hours, and when he felt sleepy, he pinched himself. At last he had his reward. Suddenly there was a flash of golden light, and a glittering bird with shining feathers flew up to the tree. Ivan watched as the creature began to peck with its jewelled beak at a golden apple. He crept silently towards the bird and grasped its tail. Now the bird broke free and fluttered away, but Ivan was left with a beautiful shining feather in his hand. On the next morning, Ivan took the feather to his father, and the Tsar was very pleased. "It must have been the Firebird," he said when Ivan told him what had happened. Then the Tsar began to think that the Firebird would be an even greater treasure than his golden apples. It would be much more valuable. He sent for his sons. "I've decided that I must have the Firebird," he said. "Saddle your horses and go in search of it, and don't forget, if you succeed you may have half of my kingdom." Peter and Vasily set out at once, but the Tsar told Ivan he was too young to go. This made Ivan very unhappy. He pleaded with his father and reminded him that he was the one that had seen the Firebird already. In the end the Tsar agreed, and Ivan put on his armour and rode into the forest. He travelled for several days until he came to a large stone. He dismounted to read the message which was carved on its side. It said, "Go ahead and you'll be hungry. Go left and you will die. Go right and you will lose your horse." Ivan thought for a while and then decided to take the path to the right. He'd been riding all day when suddenly a huge grey wolf darted from the bushes. The wolf pounced on Ivan, toppling him from his horse, which fled into the forest. "You read the message on the stone?" cried the wolf, and bounded away. Poor Ivan had to walk now. He became very tired and was sure that he would never, ever find the Firebird. At last he sat down to rest, and almost at once the wolf appeared again. I'm sorry I frightened your horse away," he said, "but you did see the message on the stone. If you're so weary, tell me where you're going and I will carry you." "I'm looking for the Firebird who stole my father's golden apples," replied Ivan. "Only I know where the Firebird lives. He belongs to a Tsar called Afron," said Grey Wolf. "Climb on my back and I will take you." As soon as Ivan had climbed on, the wolf ran swiftly through the forest, and at last they came to a high stone wall. "You'll find the Firebird there," whispered Grey Wolf, "but take care. Whatever you do, do not touch its cage." Ivan climbed over the wall, and there indeed was the beautiful Firebird in a golden cage. Forgetting all about Grey Wolf's warning, he seized the golden cage, and at once bells began to ring and guards ran up from every side. "Stop, thief!" shouted the soldiers as he turned to run. They caught him and took him before Tsar Afron, who was very, very angry. "Why do you come here to try and steal my property?" he roared. Ivan was ashamed. "Sire, your Firebird stole my father's golden apples, and he told me to catch it." "Why didn't you ask me honestly instead of trying to steal it?" asked the Tsar. "Perhaps I would have given it to you. Now I must tell everybody that you're a thief." And then Tsar Afron saw how ashamed Ivan was. "I might forget what you've done if you'll do something for me. A favour. In the next kingdom there's a horse with a golden mane. Bring it to me and I'll give you the Firebird." Ivan agreed eagerly, and the soldiers set him free. He hurried back to Grey Wolf, who was waiting outside. And when he'd heard all that had happened, Grey Wolf said, "I told you not to touch the cage. But come along, I'll carry you along to the next kingdom." Swiftly, the wolf carried Ivan through the forest until they came to the courtyard of a large castle. "Go quietly," whispered Grey Wolf. "The horse is in there, but on no account touch the bridle." As Ivan tiptoed into the stable, he could hear the grooms talking next door. He found a splendid charger with a shining golden mane standing in a stall. Ivan wondered how he could quietly lead him out. And then he saw a bridle hanging on the wall. Without thinking, he took it down and slipped it onto the horse. Straight away there was a great commotion, and Ivan was surrounded by angry servants. "Our master will punish you," shouted the men. "Tsar Kuzman never lets his prisoners escape." Ivan was led trembling to the Tsar, who glared at him angrily. "I see from your armour that you're a prince," he said. "Why do you come like a thief to steal my horse?" Ivan bowed his head in shame. Then the Tsar continued, "I should tell everybody of your disgrace, but perhaps you can help me." Ivan looked up hopefully when he heard this. "In the next kingdom lives a beautiful princess, the fair Helena. I love her dearly," said the Tsar. "Bring her to me and I will pardon you." Ivan said that he would try, and Tsar Kuzman let him go. Ivan hurried to the wolf and told him what had happened. Grey Wolf sighed at his foolishness, but forgave him once more. "Get on my back and let us go to find the fair Helena," he said. Ivan and the wolf rushed through the night. They went so fast that birds and small animals in the forest were startled as they passed. Then, after many miles, they reached a magnificent palace. "Now this time I shall take charge," said Grey Wolf. "This is the home of Tsar Dolmat. Wait for me by this oak tree." So saying, Grey Wolf leapt over the wall and hid in the palace gardens. After a while, fair Helena came out with her ladies and walked amongst the flowers. Grey Wolf sprang out and seized the princess, then sped back to the oak tree. "Hurry!" he shouted. Ivan jumped up behind Helena, and the powerful wolf galloped off. There were angry shouts from the palace and the sounds of horsemen in pursuit, but Grey Wolf was swifter than the wind, and the three escaped. Ivan and Helena clung together on Grey Wolf's back. All day he ran powerfully through the forest towards Tsar Kuzman's castle. Ivan was a handsome youth, and Helena was beautiful. Before long, they'd fallen deeply in love, as many people do in fairy tales. And as they approached the castle, Ivan began to look very sad. Grey Wolf looked over his shoulder and asked what was wrong. Ivan began to weep. "Alas," he said, "I have to part with Helena, and I cannot. I love her too much, and she loves me." The wolf slowed down a little and thought for a while. "Ivan," he said, "I have served you faithfully, but I think there's one more thing I can do for you. I can take the shape of Princess Helena. Leave her here and lead me to the Tsar. When you think of me again, I shall turn back into a wolf and return to you." Ivan was very grateful to his friend and was amazed to see him change into the exact likeness of Helena. Leaving the real Helena at the edge of the forest, the two made their way to Tsar Kuzman. The Tsar was delighted and gladly gave the horse with the golden mane to Ivan. Ivan bowed deeply and left. He went back to the real Helena, and they galloped away on the wonderful horse to get the Firebird. Meanwhile, Tsar Kuzman arranged a marriage. He was to marry fair Helena, but of course she was already far away with Ivan. The ceremony was about to begin when Ivan suddenly thought about Grey Wolf, and the magic spell was broken. As Tsar Kuzman was about to kiss his beautiful bride, she turned into a wolf with a whiskery muzzle and long yellow teeth. Everybody was so amazed that Grey Wolf was able to slip away quietly, and he soon caught up with Ivan and Helena. There was one thing left to do: to exchange the horse with the golden mane for the Firebird. But Ivan didn't want to lose his beautiful horse. "If you can turn yourself into a princess," he said to Grey Wolf, "surely you can also change into a horse." Now you might well think that Grey Wolf had done enough for Ivan. He was proud of his magical skills, however, as well as being fond of Ivan and Helena. So he immediately turned into a horse, just the same as Ivan's splendid steed. "When you think of me again," said the wolf, "I shall come back." Ivan was very pleased, and when they neared Tsar Afron's palace, he left Helena with the real horse and walked on with Grey Wolf, who neighed and tossed his head. Tsar Afron was overjoyed to see the horse with the golden mane, and gladly gave the Firebird to Ivan. Ivan left, and soon he and Helena were galloping on the real horse towards his father's house. A little while later, Ivan thought of Grey Wolf, and at that moment Tsar Afron was out hunting on his new horse and was terrified when it suddenly changed into a snarling wolf and slunk away. Now Ivan had the Firebird, the wonderful horse, and fair Helena. The wolf who had caught up with them padded alongside until they came to the palace, where he had attacked Ivan's horse. There Grey Wolf stopped. "My work is done now," he said. "I must leave you." Ivan was very sad to part with the wolf. "Do not say goodbye," said the wolf. "You may have need of me yet." And he turned and was lost to sight in the forest. Ivan and Helena travelled on towards his home. The journey was long and the weather was hot, and they felt they must rest. Ivan tied up the horse, and they lay down in the grass and were soon asleep. And as they slept, who should come by but Ivan's two brothers. They'd been looking for the Firebird, but of course had not been able to find it. Peter reined his horse and spoke to Vasily. "Look, Ivan's found the Firebird, and see, he has a horse with a golden mane and a beautiful lady too. This is too much, because father will give him half the kingdom as well. It cannot be." Rage filled Peter's heart, and drawing his sword, he killed poor Ivan. And when Helena woke in terror, Vasily pointed his sword at her throat. "You will die too if you say one word to our father about this." Poor Helena could do nothing. Vasily put her on the horse with the golden mane, and the evil brothers led her to the father's palace. Ivan lay dead in the forest, and ravens circled over his body. Many days later, Grey Wolf came by and saw his friend surrounded by young birds. Swiftly he seized one of the fledglings, and a mother bird flew down and pleaded for its life. "I will spare your child if you will do something for me," said Grey Wolf. "Fly over the mountains and bring me the water of life." The frantic mother agreed and flew off. She was soon back with a small bottle in her beak. Quickly Grey Wolf sprinkled the water on Ivan, and the prince woke up. "Have I been asleep a long time?" he asked. "Get on my back," said Grey Wolf. "We have no time to lose." As Ivan, riding on the wolf near to his father's palace, he saw that banners were flying and people were in their best clothes, hurrying towards the gates. Grey Wolf told Ivan what had happened. "Your brothers found you asleep and killed you. And then they took the Firebird, the horse with the golden mane, and they stole Helena away. And today she's being married to Vasily, and your brother Peter will have half the kingdom." Ivan hurried into the palace. There stood Helena in her wedding dress, and when she saw Ivan, she gave a great cry of joy. His two brothers were struck dumb with terror and fright at seeing their brother who they had killed. When the Tsar heard Ivan's story, he banished the wicked brothers and gave half his kingdom to his youngest son instead. Ivan and Helena were married and lived happily ever after. As for Grey Wolf, perhaps he's still helping people in those endless dark forests of Russia. And that's the story of the Firebird. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, then let us know by writing to us at thestoryshed@gmail.com. That's thestoryshed@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you, but for the time being, take very good care, be well, and bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.